Hi y'all, it's Kimberly here. It's a little dark in here because it's probably about 3:30, a little after 3:30 in the morning, and I am trying to get this lighting set up. I don't have the regular light on because it's really bright, and I fell asleep. I was gonna make this story time hours ago. I was gonna post it like about 9 or 10, but I fell asleep. I was so tired. I was working last night, and I think I had like 2 hours sleep in like 36 or 40 hours or something like that. And so when I went to sit on the couch, I just fell asleep. I just had woken up about around 3 o'clock, and I took my dogs out, and now like I said, it's probably after 3:30, maybe almost 4 o'clock in the morning. But I was going to tell this scary story anyway, so I'm going to make some mood lighting. I'm going to try to keep this lighting a little bit dim, but have all kinds of flashlights and stuff going on here. It's kind of crazy. But, so just bear with me with the lighting. Plus it kind of goes with the story. I don't want real bright lighting while I'm telling this story. I don't know if you've ever heard of The Exorcist, some of you, the younger ones. I don't know if y'all have heard of it, but us older people, we've heard of it, and it's one of the scariest movies ever. But it was a book first. It was written by William Peter Blatty, and he wrote this book about a priest. It actually wasn't supposed to be a scary story. It was supposed to be about a priest's struggle with his religious conviction, I guess. I don't really know how to say it, but him struggling with his religious, I'm just going to say conviction. I can't think of the right word. There's a better word for it, but I can't think. But he wrote the script, and I think it was like, or not the script, he wrote the book. I think it was published in like 1971. I was very young. And I read the book when I was probably about 8, I don't know, maybe about a year after it was written, a year or two after it was written, which would have made me probably about 8 or 9 years old. I had a very high reading comprehension level. I had like a college age reading comprehension level when I was in elementary school. And I read just a lot of really more adult books, more very, very thick, just read all the time. I was a really voracious reader. And I really wasn't scared when I read the book. I mean, it was a little scary, but to me, it really didn't scare me. My mom was like, "Oh, you're gonna go to hell for reading that book," when I was so young, and she kept taking it out of my room and hiding it, and I would find it, and then I think it got made into a movie a couple years after it was written. And the author, the same guy who wrote the book, he wrote the screenplay for the movie. And then the movie came out, and people were, I think a couple of people had heart attacks in the theater or something. I mean, it was really scary, the movie, the way they made it. If you haven't seen it, you should be very careful if you're going to watch it, if you get scared easily, because it's creepy. It has very primitive special effects, but it's still creepy, and it's still scary to me when I watch certain parts of it. I'm like, oh God. And so a few years after the movie, I think I was probably about between 10 and 12. I would say no older than 12. My cousin came to stay with us for a week or two, and she was older, She's probably about 10 years older than me, and she was blind. And she was sleeping in the same room with me. We were in the same bed, and we were sitting there talking in bed, and we weren't quite asleep, but it was really late at night. And then we kind of had just barely started to go to sleep, and all of a sudden we heard these noises, and my cousin like shook me, got a hold of me, and goes, "What is that? What is that noise, Kim?" And I was like, "I think it's one of the dogs," and it was like some kind of weird rustling noise, and I wasn't really scared. And then I tried to go back to sleep, and then it got a little bit louder, and then my cousin got, scared. She was like, "Kim, that's somebody. That's a person." I was like, "Well, it's probably somebody's going to the bathroom or something," and because my room was right next to the bathroom, and right across the hall from the bathroom, and I was just tired and I wanted to go to sleep, and it wasn't her home. So when you're sleeping somewhere else, you notice noises and little things, little strange things that don't sound familiar, and I was just trying to go to sleep. And then all of a sudden it got really kind of loud, and it was or like a muffled sound, and it sounded like a person. And that's when I kind of woke up, and I was like, I don't know, I don't think that's it was a person. And then all of a sudden the noises got louder and louder, and it got, I mean, extremely loud. And it sounded like somebody was moving furniture or banging stuff around. And then that went on for about a minute, and we were kind of terrified. We started holding on to each other, and I was scared, and she was scared, and we were like, "What is that? What is that noise?" And we were trying to figure out what it was, and I was like, "I don't know." And my sisters were in the room next to me. They had a double room. It was a room built for two people, and it had two closets, and it was, twice as big as a regular room. And I was like, it sounds like it's coming from their room and my sister's room. And my cousin, she's blind, so she kind of relied on other senses, and she could tell that it was a person, and she could tell it was coming from like really close to my doorway. From their doorway was maybe 10 feet. And she was saying, "I think it is from their room. I think something's going on. Somebody's in there." And my two little sisters, they were younger than me, 2 years younger than me, so we got scared that maybe somebody was in the room hurting them. And then all of a sudden we heard the most bizarre animal sounds, like snorting, and I mean really loud, and it got louder and louder. And then we heard it sounded like somebody was just shaking the bed or moving the bed around. And I mean, this sound was not human sounding. It sounded like an animal, like a pig snorting, and it was really loud. It was, I can't even describe it. It was so loud. And I mean, we literally could almost feel the vibrations in our room. And my cousin said, "Well, get up and go check on your sisters." And I was like, "No, you do it. You're blind. You can't see anything." And it sounds horrible, but I was a little kid, and I was terrified. And she goes, "Well, what does that matter?" you know, I can't see what's going on, so why should I go first? And so we got out of bed, and my door was shut, and we got behind the door, and we're listening, and it was just so loud, and it continued on. This was going on for several minutes, and then we kind of cracked the door, and we could hear, it was, I mean, just, it was horrifying. And all this snorting and all this moving around, all these noises, and you could hear the furniture moving, and it sounded, we weren't even sure if it was one person. It sounded like maybe 2 or 3 people. Just, we couldn't figure out what it was at all. And then we kind of, all the lights were turned off, and the bathroom was on the other side, kind of directly across from my room. Not exactly directly, but probably like 6 feet kind of to one direction, you know. And my sister's room was in the other direction. And so I think my cousin said, go turn on the bathroom light real quick, you know, and so I jumped across all, I mean, I literally just jumped and I ran, I turned the light on and I shut the door, I slammed the door, I was in there by myself, and then I cracked the door open, my cousin was like, Kim, where are you? Because she's blind, she can't see, and I said, I'm in the bathroom, the light's on, and she goes, what do you see? And I just barely cracked the door, I was like, I can't see anything, it's dark out there. I didn't want to come out. You know, this terrified little kid in the bathroom. And then I said, come here, come to the bathroom. And so my cousin, I said, the way is clear, just walk across, hurry, run. And so she ran across, and I grabbed her hand and pulled her in the bathroom, and we were, you know, in the light, and so we were listening, and then finally we just kind of, I mean, it stayed constantly loud, and it was just the same noise, just making all kinds of noise and racket, and that snorting sound, just like a pig. And somehow we just opened the bathroom. We finally kind of opened it all the way, and my sister's bedroom was open, and we could see my sister's bed, kind of like the covers, or we barely could see like the, you know, kind of like right now with the flashlight I have, you can't really see everything, but we could kind of see the end of her bed, and the covers were moving around, and like her mattress, like you could just see something, you know, like we were assuming like her legs were kicking around on it or something, and we thought maybe, or we didn't even know what to think. It was just bizarre, the most bizarre thing ever. And so then we finally I got behind her, and I was kind of like pushing her. I was like, come on, let's go. Ooh, you know. And she was in the front, and I was like latched onto her like a leech. I was just hanging on to her, and we're like, you know, this blind person with this little kid hanging on the back of him, kind of scooting step by step through the hallway. It was probably about 10 feet from where we're at, and we scooted down there, and then we're standing in the doorway, and my sister was laying on the bed, and she was just flopping around. I mean, flopping around like a foot in the air. Her whole body was just flopping everywhere, and she was just snorting like a pig. And it was just, I mean, I could see it. And my cousin was like, what's going on? What's happening? I was like, I tried to describe it to her. I was like, my sister, she's just flopping around. There's something wrong with her. I don't know. She's possessed or something. And I had just, you know, read that book. I probably finished it not even a week before that, a few days before that. And just the mental things that were going through my mind, I was like, this is real. Oh my gosh, you know, these things do happen, you know, because at first when I read the book, I really wasn't that scared when I read it, and I didn't believe it. I thought it was all made up, you know, and I was so in shock, and then I turned on the light finally. I finally turned on the light, and I could see her, and she was just flopping around, even with the light on. Snorting, and just her hair was flying everywhere, and she was shaking the bed so much it was like just not really moving around. And she had kind of it was a twin bed, but it was still kind of not really heavy, but it wasn't going off the floor or anything like that, you know. It wasn't being levitated or anything like that. It was just her body moving it around, you know, as she was flopping around. And my other little sister, they're twins, was on the other bed across the room, sound asleep, didn't hear any of this. And then finally, we went over to the bed, and we both kind of were like trying to wake her up, you know, kind of, Renee. And we kind of got her to sit up, and she just had this crazy look, like she was not fully awake. Her facial expression was just blank, and her eyes were staring straight ahead. and she was still kind of making these noises like that. Just, I was scared of her. And we're trying to wake her up, and she just was in a state of mind that she just was not, she was like catatonic, sort of. She wasn't really aware of things, and she was physically kind of responding to us when we were trying to get her out of the bed. She kind of slowly walked, but she walked like a zombie, and we walked her to the bathroom, and we kind of had to hold her up a little bit, and we literally had to walk her, I mean, with support. She couldn't really walk by herself, and so we took her into the bathroom, and then we sat her down on the commode lid was down. We sat her down on that, and she was sweating all over. Just, I mean, her face was just like, it looked like she'd been out in the sun, just sweating, drenched in sweat. And then she kind of, we're like, Renee, what's, trying to make her talk and make her tell us what's happening. What, are you here? Are you with us? And she finally kind of started to talk, and she started crying, and she was just very emotionally upset, and she was like, what happened to me? What happened to me? And we're like, we don't know what happened to you. You tell us. And we described what happened to her, that she was flopping around and everything. We're like, what was going on? And she finally, it took a couple minutes, but she finally was able to tell us that she was having a bad dream, that the entire family, all of us, cousins, aunts, uncles, all of us, everybody, our grandmother, everybody was on an airplane, and it was starting to plunge down, plummet down, nose down to the earth, and it was crashing, and that we were all screaming and running around, and everybody was crying, and she was just describing this horrible scene, of all of us dying. And it took, she was pale. I mean, her skin was white as could be, and we had to, it took 30 minutes for us to kind of get her in a, I mean, she still physically was not very, she could walk and everything, but just her motor skills were slowed down or something. I mean, it was just the most bizarre thing that ever happened to me, and it was terrifying when it happened. Oh God, that kind of scares me in the dark. I'm not really scared of the dark, but just, God, when I think back to that memory, when I think about that, then that can make me a little scared of the dark. But in general, usually not. But just the what I saw, I'll never forget. The way she was flopping around and the bed moving, kind of, and all that. That was just the most bizarre scene ever. And it was right after The Exorcist. After I'd seen the movie and the book, and I had talked about that book to my cousin earlier that afternoon. That I read it, and she was surprised. How young I was, and that I read it, and I understood it, and I explained it to her and everything, and she's like, I can't believe you read that book, and I was like, yeah, but that's probably one of the scariest things that I've experienced, as a child, bizarre, scary things, and I'll just never forget it. Well, sorry this was so late. I'm going to be putting up right now, so it's probably around 4 o'clock in the morning already. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll post some more later today. I'm going to go to sleep right now. I'm still tired, but I just wanted to get this out because I know I said I was going to do it last night. I'm sorry I fell asleep. I was so tired. But thank you so much, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you.